sweet little people that you think, okay? You know, I mean, you're living in a world of the make-believe, Chris. You want to know the truth. And I had the good sense to leave Atlantic City, which, by the way, Caesars just went bankrupt. Every company, Chris can tell you, every company virtually in Atlantic City went bankrupt. Every company. And let me just tell you, I had the good sense, and I've gotten a lot of credit in the financial pages. 7 years ago, I left Atlantic City before it totally cratered, and I made a lot of money in Atlantic City, and I'm very proud of it. I want to tell you that. Very, very proud of it. But
so not only in terms of his blustering, right, which is a huge entertainment value, but you look at the way that this is shot as well, right? Cross screen so you can get whoever's in conflict, get the reactions from them immediately. Cut to the audience that is howling with glee with everything he says. And cut to the person who's asking the question, because those personalities are also a big part of the spectacle as well. So all of this kind of works in tandem. We got little graphics, Trump, millionaire, kind of down the side. You have all of this stuff that is kind of very televisual, very part of the way that the medium kind of dictates the way that this works. And you know, in terms of the ratings.
We struck the mother load!
And they have, right? So this is...
Secretary throws his head a bit.
So what is created now, sorry, I have to put in
Horse race.
Right, so it becomes a horse race, and that becomes part of the serial story, the plot arc of the series season, right? Who's winning, who's up, who's down. And not only that, but this also became, in terms of the, you know, like the who gets voted off the island thing, for the Republicans, especially if you were down polling below a certain number, you don't get to be on stage. This just happened to Carly Fiorino in the last debate in New Hampshire. She didn't make the cut in terms of polling high. So these things become very important. So it's created this thing where all of a sudden, even though political reporting is on the decline in America, substantive reporting about issues, right? We know that, you know, this is a Pew Center thing that I thought was interesting. Reporting in state capitals down over 12 years, and now that 15% of that students who go there to report. But in terms of political coverage, or I have scare quotes there because this is really one of my questions, is this really political coverage or is this entertainment coverage? In terms of people opining on the theater criticism, did that thing that Hillary say, will that work with the horse race? Was so-and-so's question fair? Should you feel umbrage? This is how it's telling us to evaluate these things, not based on substance, but based on spectacle. And that is exploding. So Politico, I read this piece, it was saying, you know, this is now this generator and reactive journalism about stuff, right? What happened yesterday in the political race? Their revenues for the last couple of years have been up 20% a year, and they're going to expand as franchises now into European countries. They're trying to figure out how to make that crossover, right? Because it's great. We have this huge spectacle that's a content provider, little sound bites of stuff from the debates, that then you can mash up and work over and have people report on. It's a wonderful content provider for all of this. So all of this has created all kinds of different ways of chopping up these debates as well. Like this is one of the things that's running on CNN digital.
Trump says we ought to close that internet thing.
Donald, you know, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate.
And this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate. Endless debates about how many angels on the head of a pin from people who've never had to make a consequential decision.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency.
It's actually merciful if you go ahead and finish the job rather than death by 1,000 pricks.
So you are okay with the deaths of thousands of innocent children and civilians? It's like...
You got it.
So when you ask yourself, whoever you are that think you're going to support Donald Trump, think, do you believe in the Constitution? They can kill us, but we can't kill them. That's what you're saying.
If you want something talked about, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Well, I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate. Virtually the entire early portion of the debate was Trump this, Trump that, in order to get ratings.
I've gotten to know him over the last 3 or 4 days. He has a wonderful temperament. He's just fine. Don't worry about it.
Ted, you support legalizing people who are in this country illegally.
That for Marco to suggest our record's the same is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire.
Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am.
Right, so you can see the way that they're pre-digesting this, so that the thing that is already about sound bites and whatnot is even kind of condensed for the internet viewer. And a lot of this content is now going on over the digital platforms because the networks are trying to make that move over as well. They're trying to figure out how to do that.
So what you just showed,
Is pulled up directly off of CNN.
and so if you go on CNN.com, you click on a debate thing and it'll just show you just that.
They have mashups for every one of the debates on there. And again, before each of these things, they're showing you an ad, right? Because this is what they're clickbait in a sense. They're showing you an ad before each one of these things. So it's digesting things, giving you literally the slogan, right? Death of 1,000 pricks. You know, it's a bumper sticker politics, right? And this is, again, for the people who don't even have time to watch the debates, they can get the condensed version, a Reader's Digest version. So again, we have this enormous incentive to keep doing this, and the ways in which this kind of fertilizes all these other digital platforms is becoming, the networks now see what the benefits of this are. So it's very much a show. Here's one.
I'm curious why you didn't call ahead of time before sending out those messages.
On Monday night, about 6:30 p.m., CNN reported that Ben was not going from Iowa to New Hampshire or South Carolina. Rather, he was, quote, taking a break. CNN reported on that. They didn't correct that story until 9:15 that night.
The timeline indicates that that initial tweet from CNN was followed by another one within 1 minute. Everybody can see what happened, and you can make your own judgment.
Dr. Carson, thank you.
When you're president of the United States, when you're governor of a
Each one of
state,
these has a
to sit
different
to memorize
hashtag.
30-second speech where
First
you
one's
talk about how
Iowa
great
caucus,
America is
yeah,
at the end of it,
Christie
doesn't
versus
solve
Rubio.
one problem for one person.
This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not
There
true.
it is.
He knows
There
exactly
it is,
what he's
the
doing.
memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the...
It was reported just moments ago that the North Koreans test launched an intercontinental ballistic missile.
China says they don't have that good a control over North Korea. They have tremendous control. I deal with them. They tell me.
We're going to build a wall. We're going to triple the border patrol. I will simply say I've got somebody in mind to build it.
How tough is it
A
to
lot
take
of
away
times,
property from an elderly
Let
woman?
me talk. Quiet.
How
A lot
tough
of
is it?
times.
Right, so, and they're learning, right? This is the latest one. They've now realized that you can kind of, if you troll out there on the internet for viewers as well, with hashtags, you can pull in more people to see these kind of condensed versions, more people to see kind of the greatest hits moment of the most conflict, right? It's all about conflict. The Trump time that he shushed him, the time he, the smackdown of Christie and Rubio, all of this stuff. So it's an enormous amount of drama being played up in order to get ratings. And probably the biggest drama of the series so far has been the Megyn Kelly-Trump feud, right? Which was
about Megyn Kelly, because you brought her up.
an interview we did on
She did push
CNN.
you, pushed a lot of people, but what is it with you and Megyn Kelly?
Well, I just don't respect her as a journalist. I have no respect for her. I don't think she's very good. I think she's highly overrated. But when I came out there, what am I doing? I'm not getting paid for this. I go out there, and they start saying, "Lift up, if you're gonna." I didn't know there'd be 24 million people. I figured, but I knew it was gonna be a big crowd because I get big crowds. I get ratings. They call me the ratings machine. So I have, she gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions, and you can see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever, but she was, in my opinion, she was off base. And by the way, not in my opinion, in the opinion of hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter, because it has been a brutal day. In one way, a great day for Fox, and another day in the Twitter sphere, it's been very bad because she's been very badly criticized.
Let's take a look
She's
at
a lightweight. I couldn't care less about her. In fact, you're competing against her, and I'm doing your show. That's it.
Right, so the reason the CNN put him on, of course, is he's going to diss on Fox News the whole time, and CNN thought this would be good for them as well. But this is part of the way that this works. All of these shows are kind of using the advertisement for the debate to to brand themselves, right? To brand their own shows. CNN ran, something that's CNN, the place for politics. They're all kind of doing it very antagonistic marketing along this. And you can see from the kind of graph over there the amount of time that Fox is spending on interviewing the stars of these reality shows. It's creating almost the entire content for the network. That's pretty much all they do is invite these people on to talk about what's going on. This is a print ad. Fox top CNN. So the drama even becomes about the conflict between the networks as well, which also helps drive coverage. Such that, this was interesting, with the Megyn Kelly thing.
When did you actually become a Republican?
Right, so this was the HuffPost piece on there, where they're now declaring the winner of the debate, Megyn Kelly, right? It tells you how much crossover there is between who the stars of these shows are. And this is really helpful for Fox, right? So Trump boycotts Megyn Kelly and Fox, and he appears on the O'Reilly Factor, which boosts the show to a 3-year high in ratings. And Megyn Kelly goes on multiple late-night shows to deal with this, which is very important for Fox, because Megyn Kelly is the hope for Fox's future, right? Fox's average demographic is 65 and white, and consumer people who sell ads only care about 29 to 54, right? So if they don't get a young audience, this is disastrous for them. And it's worked to a certain degree. Megyn Kelly is now, she's now the #1 show. She's about bested O'Reilly, which O'Reilly's a little chapped about. But she's now getting a 41% jump in the demographic that they were hoping to get her tied into. So they're using this conflict with Trump to brand her show, to tell people about the Kelly files, and to make this their #1 rated show. So if you don't think there are synergies involved in that feud, it's very much an ersatz feud, I would argue, that they ginned up to create ratings, right? So all told, all of this conflict over whether or not Trump was going to appear boosted the network to the highest ratings that they've seen in 4 years. So all this, is Trump going to kill them? It creates this complete opposite type of thing. So not only do we have cross-promotion on the news channels itself, the news being this profitable thing, but also on late night shows, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, I think O'Reilly and Megyn Kelly were both on Colbert this week, but also this one last week.
Of the 1% getting this preferential treatment. Enough is enough. We need to unite and work together if we're all going to get through this.
Sounds like socialism to me.
Democratic socialism.
What's the difference?
Huge difference.
Huge?
Huge.
Huge with a Y, eh? Who are you?
I am Bernie Sanders-Witzky. But we're going to change it when we get to America so it doesn't sound quite so Jewish.
Yeah, that'll trick 'em.
So obviously this isn't the first time that candidates have appeared on SNL. They started doing it when Ford was made fun of by Chevy Chase. They invited him on. But in this latest election cycle, Trump, Clinton, and Sanders have all appeared on it. And you can tell from the way that these things work that it's very intertextual, right? This is assuming a large degree of knowledge in terms of the huge joke, right? It's making fun of Trump. So there's all this ways in which this kind of intertextuality and cross-fertilization is working across different platforms, working within television itself, working to generate this enormous kind of generator of content. Blow through this one, I think you seen enough of those. But so, which brings us to where we are. So you have this is the you guys didn't see this. These are the kind of basic election results from last night. But if you want to get a sense of how the kind of general popular press is dealing with this, look at today's Huffington Post. It's melodrama. This is all about melodrama, the choice of red and the bombs, right? This is, all of these things are effectively plunged into chaos, nightmare for the party. This is melodrama. So again, melodrama is the basic trope of thinking where you have good guys and you have bad guys, where the world isn't filled with grays and difficulties, but it's easy things that are all tapping into your emotion. So on the kind of the women's spectrum, we have soap operas. On the men's spectrum, we have worldwide wrestling with good guys, bad guys, and lots of blustering affect. And I would say that what you can see from this is that we are indeed being taught to perceive, think, evaluate, judge, frame our political process as a melodrama along those lines, right? So it looks a lot like that in terms of how we're framing these things. The way in which we're dealing with these plot lines, the personality conflicts, the feelings of betrayal. I would say that this is, in a way, the way we're being taught to think about this election this year. Think about the way in which we talk about the candidates, Bernie, Donald, Hillary. That's asking us to kind of have parasocial identification. It's asking us to think of them as individuals that we know through the show, right? The same way that television would ask us to think about Rhoda or Mary Tyler Moore, people who we think of in the kind of first name basis, Jerry Seinfeld. This is the way television, in a way, does symbolic violence over the process. So, the problem is it's the McLuhan thing. The medium is the message. The medium is instructing us how to evaluate these things, and it's based on wanting us to watch more TV. The way to get involved in politics, we're being told, is just to tune in, have a feeling about it, and maybe even give to the machine money. I don't know if any of you have your spam filters on kind of steroids these days like I do, but every day I'm inundated with literally hundreds of emails from people asking me to donate money because some bogeyman is launched by yesterday's news, right? Today it's Trump must be stopped, the golem is crouching toward town. But we've created this golem in a way through magic conjuring of television. So this is a kind of a Marcuse shtick, and this is kind of me getting to my scare quotes around political, right? So repressive desublimation is this great Marcuse concept where he worries, as a kind of Frankfurt School thing, that we are taken out of our engagement with the world through mollification in media, right? The culture industry creates stuff for us to invest ourselves in that's taking us away from doing creative work. So Freud's perspective on sublimation is that when we feel anxiety in the world, the best thing to do with this is work, right? Pour ourselves and our psychic energies into work. Repressive desublimation is stuff that says, don't worry about that work, follow this show over here. It's repressive because it's desublimating us into that type of an experience. And the downside of this, for Marcuse, is it creates a one-dimensional world, one-dimensional man. We think of everything under the same type of discourse, the same mode of rationality, and it's entertainment. Right? So my kind of problematic here would be, what if politics as entertainment is the complete inverse of political action? Right? Because it invests us in politics as a spectacle that makes us think it's political, but if in fact what it's offering us is just to follow our favorite characters and say up or down to them, then it's part of this mechanism of repressive desublimation. This is the problem I see with the mediatization of television along those lines. And again, along that line, the problem would be the withering of something like deliberative democracy and a mode of public speaking and thinking. So here's when I do my requisite drawing out of Habermas, right? The notion of a public sphere where we constitute it by our thinking the public, right? By putting away our personal pettiness and thinking about what's good for the whole. There's nothing in this process as it is mediated that is asking us to do that. It's asking us to invest ourselves wholly in the notion of individual preferences and personalities, right? So Habermas thinks that we need all these different modes of discourse out there that, types of rationality that we can have. What you get with a kind of one-dimensional thinking is that all those other modes of discourse, right, will start to wither away. So John was saying they're trying to figure out a platform for having a good debate that would do that. And I would say you need to have a platform that's going to allow for something like, extended thoughts beyond 3 words, right? Something that moves beyond the bumper sticker, something that moves beyond the investment in personality, or else you start to get everything looking a lot like TV. And I think that's the danger in terms of our thinking about the necessities of deliberation for any kind of thriving democracy. So in terms of the kind of what is to be done question, which I think is one we can kind of entertain here in questions. This is the little board you have as well, right? So the best form of resistance we have to this is to not fall into the traps that it gets us to, kind of go beyond the modes of evaluation that television provides for us, and the kind of journalistic juggernaut that is feeding off of this kind of media frenzy, and to expand our thinking about this, to go into detail on, and to think about these things in other modes of rationality than the ones that are being provided through the media, again, the cross-platform, digital, political spectrum. And then the other one, I think, is the most obvious one, which is to take away the economic incentive, right? It used to be that you had to do public service if you're a TV station. And now we just give it away for free. But there's no reason that can't be revisited. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 is not etched in stone somewhere. You can make people do quid pro quo for being granted essentially a monopoly over the stations that we, the people, own. And if you take that out of it and you shorten campaigns like every other country in deliberative democracy in the world, this takes away all those economic pressures. It takes away the leverage of the symbolic violence that I kind of evoked at the beginning today. So here ends the lesson. Glad to hear your questions.
I'm wondering if you can talk more about how you've seen this change in a longer context, because American history is ripe with populist figures, with anger and little ideology. We've also had journalism that has consistently been little substance, or when there is substance, just very biased substance. I mean, it seems like this is the norm, in my opinion, in politics, not an aberration.
It's changed, right? So yellow journalism, I mean, newspapers essentially began as organs for political parties, and they were not known for their kind of objectivity ever, right? And so this is true, right? You see kind of personality issues, those kind of clashes as well. I think my concern about what television does is it creates a mode that is distinct to it. So it may follow some of the lines and tendencies of politics being about people's relationship to people. Right? Politics is people. But the pressures of television as a medium, I think, have shifted it in a new and interesting way. It is, and those pressures are increasingly squeezing the system into a smaller and smaller way of evaluating. Right? So again, I agree with you that there's some continuity there, but I think the radical discontinuity in the equation is stuff that television as a medium has brought to bear. Yeah.
So even if we acknowledge all the sort of farcical elements of televised debates, isn't it sort of encouraging that so many people are interested in terms of how the audience keeps growing?
Well, 66% of people in New Hampshire last night think that Muslims should be banned from entry into the United States. Right? Now, I don't want to say there's a cause-effect relationship, but there's a cause and effect relationship. Those are the lines that are being driven by this rating. So, yes, I would love to pull people into the process, but what is that process? The argument that's always made is that somehow that the TV is going to be the taste that is going to pull people into greater reading about other things. It's pulling them into investment in the process, and then they can go forth and read more and more. I think that's not true. I mean, if you look at the way that people are reading deeper and deeper, it's usually in service of maintaining the beliefs they already have. Right? It's solidifying their already existing prejudices. That's what the availability of digital kind of platform does to it. So, yeah, I guess it's encouraging that more and more people are invested in this, but what I think that does is it creates all these leverages where, the man, let's call him, the great capitalist ontology out there, is going to smell that this is now a hot commodity, is going to kind of put the print of profit on this more and more. Right? Because if you got to show that people are watching, let's figure out a way to sell it. Let's figure out a way to make money on it, to monetize it. And I think that's really where you're seeing these pressures being exerted. So.
But I think even as these guys are trying to just sort of recite their talking points and this prefabricated little sound bites and stuff, there's so many people who watch just sort of see right through it. Right? And they stand exposed, they stand revealed, they stand naked before us. Right. And we learn things about them, even despite their best efforts for us not to learn the things that we're learning about them. So I think there's still this value.
Sure, I'm not claiming that they're all bad. I'm filled with a great degree of ambivalency. Right? And I'm kind of presenting, as I said, this is a provocation to think about this.
Yeah, I think I've been looking into there's a book called Running from Office, which is about sort of young people's being turned off from careers in politics, and I think that I wonder if that's sort of part of the result of imagining oneself in this partly vulnerable position, but also a hot seat, and it's really not about the person, it's about the party or about the money or this kind of thing. And so it seems like that's where the critical viewership may be coming in, but it's possibly feeding this disengagement with politics, or what seems to be, at least.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we watch is to sort of make fun of these people.
Yeah.
They're so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I like the idea of making elections shorter. But if you look at a country like Israel, where they condense their elections down to a 4-week period, and the president's actually allowed to decide whenever that election period is, you get the strong advantage for the incumbency. And then also, if you look towards, let's say, Jeb Bush announcing that he was running December 14th, isn't that good for deliberation to the fact where the public can get this large base of information for a long period of time?
Right.
So where do you find the middle point between that?
I think we should try to find the middle point between that, right? So